Welcome back for another video. It's a chip special in this week's experts video, so we're going to do a deep dive into what the top all-time managers are doing, who they're buying and selling, what's the best team for this game week and all those good things. Andrew Moore is just barely hanging on to the top spot. He got 58 points on the wildcard last game week, very small red arrow. Did you manage to beat the average expert score of 59? I think it might be the strongest season for the experts ever. We've got 6 currently ranked in the top 1k in the world. We've got 17 in the top 10k. And we've got 44 in the top 50k. And of course, there's still plenty of time for more gains, so it's great to see how this season has shaped up for them. So yeah, if there is one video you don't want to miss, it's these every week. Make sure you're subscribing so you don't miss out on top all-time managers data to help you do well. Looking at Gameweek33 then, 29% are going to roll this week, 26% making 1 transfer, 10% are making 2, no one's making more than 2 transfers. However, 35% have activated a chip, free hit or wildcard. We'll take a look at a free hit team in a moment. Some tricky decisions this week, particularly for the Gameweek32 wildcarders, like do you sell or keep O'Reilly, do you sell or keep Gabriel? You know, if you've got Bowen or Thiago, do you sell them given how well they did last game week? Let's take a look at the most bought and sold players then. So with just over a third of the experts free hitting, the list is almost entirely free hit picks. And the most sold list is non-free hitters to help paint a better picture there. We'll also touch on who the non-free hitters are buying specifically. So the 2 most bought players joint first is Palmer and João Pedro this week, 39%. Enzo being bought by 8%, not enough to make the list but worth a mention as well. Despite Chelsea's dire form, it's still a pretty solid double game week. In fact, if we look at projected goals for all teams this week, Chelsea are close second behind Man City. City have got 3.7 projected goals across the 2 games, Chelsea 3.5, Bournemouth 3.2, Brighton 3.0 and Leeds 2.8. So there is still merit in double Chelsea attack, or even triple with Enzo. I always remember Palace's late double game week a couple of years ago. Some of you might remember this. There was a choice between going 2 Palace attackers and a defender, or really going for it with triple attack. Elise, Eze and Mateta. They all look great, and all 3 of them ended up getting double-digit points. Mateta ended up on like 28 or 29 points alone in that double. So yeah, if you are chasing especially, then triple attack could be worth considering. As is triple City attack, of course, with Cherki included alongside Semenyo and Haaland. I think he's far less likely to get 90 in both games. Not that that's a big issue for Cherki necessarily. Calvert-Lewin and Senesi, the joint second most bought with 38%, and then Tavernier, Semenyo, Darlow, Struijk, Haaland, Hill, Verbruggen, Cherki, Guehi, Gross and Van Heck. So the most sold is O'Reilly. Pep's press conference, I believe, is on 12:30 on Friday, where he'll no doubt be asked about him. As it stands, no further news on him other than seeing him in a recovery session early in the week, and he is still flagged on FPL. I wouldn't count on Pep for a concrete answer, so just be prepared to make a decision with that lack of information. If you're sitting on like 4 or 5 transfers, then there is that potential room to swap into another City defender, probably Guehi, and then potentially swap back. Otherwise, it's just likely not worth it if we don't get any clear info, because he could be fine for all we know. On a free hit, however, you can make a much better case for avoiding O'Reilly. Guehi is the most bought there, 21%. Surprisingly, no one going for Nunes. Guehi is at least almost certainly safe for a start in both double game week fixtures, so that is appealing. O'Reilly is being brought in by just 9% on the free hit therefore. 8% are selling Gabriel, so he does still remain at 77% ownership among the top all-time managers. He is a tricky one because there is definite opportunities if you've got that scope to add a Bournemouth or a Leeds defender. Or if you don't have triple City, then obviously Guehi's in the mix as well. However, Arsenal defence was just over 120% effective ownership in the top 10k last week, and that's going to be similar at the likes of top 100k, 500k, etc. So yeah, you're taking on some really high ownership there and betting on Arsenal not keeping a clean sheet, which is quite unlikely. Arsenal have got Fulham home game week 35, they've got West Ham away game week 36, Burnley home game week 37, so you do need a plan in place to get him back. It can potentially be delayed until game week 37. Since Leeds do have Burnley home in game week 35, you could get by fine if they keep a clean sheet against Burnley. City have got Everton away in 35, so you know O'Reilly and Guehi are startable. Bournemouth have got Palace home, and that's when they're expected to be playing the Europa Conference League games either side. So there are definitely some appealing fixtures that can afford that potential Gabriel out and rebuy a later strategy. So it's a chip special this week. 1 wildcard active, 34% of free hitting, 64% of bench boosting. Only 1 manager not using a chip this week. The most used chip overall is wildcard. Only 22% have still got it left after this game week. And then triple captain, which only 23% still have. 65% still have the free hit, which is expected to almost entirely be used up in the blank Gameweek 34 for those that still have it. 29% still have the bench boost. Wader has activated his free hit. He's got a couple top 10Ks to his name, and his team is Darlow, Bogle, Guehi, Senesi, Gross, Semenyo, Palmer, Tavernier, Calvert-Lewin, Haaland and João Pedro. And on his bench for Bruggen, Enzo, Hill and Van Heck. My initial plan was to use the free hit chip in Gameweek 34 to cover the blanks, but with Arsenal getting knocked out of the FA Cup, my team is looking okay now for that week, with there being more upside and trying to attack the doubles in Gameweek 33 instead. As Leeds have the best fixture on paper, I've doubled up on their defence, with Guehi offering attacking threat and Senesi always being good for Defcon. Palmer and Semenyo the best midfield picks from Chelsea and City, with both Gross and Tavernier on most set pieces for Brighton and Bournemouth. It is a risk not having Bruno in the midfield, given his high ownership and form this season, but with him having Chelsea away, I think it's worth targeting players playing twice instead this week. The front line of DCL, Haaland and João Pedro will probably be the template for those of us playing their free hit chip this week, where it feels like too much of a gamble going against Haaland with the captaincy, even though he hasn't been scoring recently. Especially with Burnley away being his second game in the double game week. I'm hoping that my bench players don't outscore my starting 11. And lastly, Guido Batista has activated his bench boost, so here's his team. Verbruggen, Senesi, Struijk, O'Reilly, Palmer, Tavernier, Semenyo, Gross, João Pedro, DCL and Haaland. And the bench boost is Darlow, Van Heck, Bruno and Gabriel. Some accompanying manager thoughts on the bench boost and general thoughts this week. I was really hesitant using my wildcard last week because my team still looked really good. Ultimately it was the best strategy for me however, as I had all my chips left. This would have meant that I would have had to bench boost in Gameweek 37 with all single Gameweek players if I choose the free hit 33 and wildcard 35 strategy, as I will be triple captain in Haaland at 36. Another factor in deciding against this was being so late in the season, so rotation might be prevalent and would be hard to know which teams will still have something to play for, as I've had to wildcard 2 weeks before the bench boost. Wildcarding the week before a bench boost is always my preferred choice if you can't get rid of it before your wildcard and really cheap out on your bench. This is to try and limit injuries, as we've seen this week. We still have a doubt with O'Reilly. Unless, if he is confirmed as fully fit by Pep, I will be transferring him out to Guehi and rolling my other transfer. The players picked on the wildcard 32 to bench boost 33 pretty much picked themselves. Burnley I was happy to completely ignore. Likewise with the Chelsea defence due to so many injuries and rotation at the moment, as a lot of their first choice defenders aren't fit. I decided to keep Gabriel instead of doubling up on Bournemouth's defence, as I felt I didn't have enough transfer to load up Arsenal and Palace in from Gameweek 35 onward. This way I already have them in place. I can assess the situation in Gameweek 35 to see how many I want to add from both teams depending on the Arsenal City result at the weekend and Palace's progress in the Conference League. The triple ups on City, Leeds and Brighton are template, but will hopefully still deliver the points. And finally Bruno, he had to stay on wildcard 32 last week, as I knew his effective ownership would be extremely high. He'll also be on my bench boost this week, like Gabriel, even with a single game, as I would want him straight back too. Another point to factor for them two is that I have a high amount of value held in them, so transferring them back in would cost a lot more. It won't be until the end of the season when we know which strategy was best out of the wildcard 32, bench boost 33, free hit 34, or free hit 33, wildcard 35, bench boost 37. However, I only lost 6 points in Gameweek 32 to my pre-wildcard team, which in all honesty was less than I was expecting. This was the main reason why I was very indecisive about my strategy, as I knew I was making my team worse last week. However, from this week onwards until the end of the season, I think my team looks strong. Therefore, I'm happy with the decision made, and I'm hoping to gain them points back on the bench boost this week. Thanks very much, gents, for the write-ups. Good luck with the chips. So moving on to captaincy, and it is 94% Haaland this week, just 3% Semenyo, 2% Palmer, and 1 O'Reilly captaincy if we get a positive update. On the video with the current world number 1 recorded earlier, we were talking about Palmer captain because Maguire's picked up a 1-match suspension, plus Martinez obviously picked up that 3-match suspension last game, so we might see a Euro and Heaven centre-back partnership with a combined age of 39. Could Chelsea take advantage? Moving on to the experts team, and if you appreciate the hours that go into each of these experts video, hit subscribe and like. It's completely free and you can always change your mind. So the team is Darlow, Hill, Senesi, Struijk, Palmer, Tavernier, Semenyo, Gross, Calvert-Lewin, Haaland and João Pedro. And on the bench we've got Verbruggen, Van Heck, Gabriel and Bruno. Bench boost active. So that's 13 players in the team with a double, and then it's Gabriel and Bruno who keep their spots as single game weekers. How many players have you got from the experts team? Palmer shoots up to 98% ownership among the experts. Just 19% overall, by the way, so that is a massive green flag opportunity right there in the experts data. Like Tavernier, again, 88% owned, 5% overall. Verbruggen, 94% owned, 9% overall, and there's similar differences for Hill, Darlow, Struijk and Gross. Final thoughts and tips from the top all-time managers. Here's what they wanted to say to you. FPL Vert says, this week in the Premier League we've got a showdown between Arsenal and Man City. And in Fantasy Premier League we've got a showdown between Free Hit 33 and Bench Boost 33. At least it feels that way. I do think both chip strategies will have fairly similar lineups with the exception of Cherky Punt, which I suspect the bench boosters won't go for. Best of luck everyone. Milky Way Kid says, for anyone bench boosting with Gabriel, I only think it's worth selling him for a double if you've got at least 3 transfers and no other issues. A transfer out is tempting this week, but with Arsenal's run from Gameweek 34, Gabriel's overall points potential and his high ownership, you'll want him back almost straight away. Using 2 free transfers to sell and get him back is a very high price to pay, given you'll probably need them for Palace's likely double in 36 and any injuries that will inevitably pop up between now and Gameweek 38. And lastly, Sticky FPL says, I'd expect Free Hit to lose out to the bench boost this week, but it does pose a couple of interesting opportunities to go against the grain. Cherky being the primary case, who's already been the star of my first free hit early in the season, and I'll be hoping he makes it 2 for 2. I'll be likely lining up 4-3-3 to take advantage of the DEFCON dominant Leeds and Bournemouth defensive options, while remaining unconvinced by many of the midfielders. Thanks very much for watching, guys. I'll be live late Friday afternoon for a deadline stream. See you all then. Good luck in the double game week.